High Elder Zixtal's crystalline appendages trembled as he studied the holographic display before him. In his 40,000 years of existence, he had never witnessed such a flagrant violation of universal law. The sensor array's recording played again, a small vessel, crude by council standards, vanishing in a burst of golden light that seemed to twist reality itself. "Impossible," he whispered, his voice resonating through the chamber of observation. "Run the analysis again." The AI complied, its results unchanged. The vessel had achieved faster than light travel without using approved methodologies. No quantum tunneling, no space warp generators, no dimensional folding. Instead, this ship had somehow convinced space itself to cooperate. "Origin?" Zixtal demanded, already dreading the answer. "Sol system, third planet. Classification: Earth. Species: human." The AI's response caused several of the junior observers to emit distress crystals. Earth was supposed to be at least 3 centuries away from achieving even basic FTL capability, according to the Council's carefully calculated technological progression charts. The recording continued, showing the vessel, designated Genesis, reappearing inside the 7th quadrant's supposedly impenetrable security zone. The ship's hull gleamed with an odd iridescence, as if reality itself couldn't quite decide how to perceive it. "Show me the pilot," Zixtal ordered. The hologram shifted, zooming in through the vessel's hull as if it were transparent. In the command chair sat a human female, her posture relaxed, as if she were out for a casual flight, rather than breaking fundamental laws of physics. Captain Jessica Reynolds, according to the ship's registry, was smiling as she made notes on a paper notebook. Paper, of all things, while casually manipulating controls that shouldn't exist. "Containment Protocol Omega-7, Zixtal announced, his crystalline form pulsing with urgent frequencies. "This deviation must be contained before." "Elder." A junior observer's panic interrupted him. "The human vessel. It's broadcasting. Blocking frequencies now," another observer announced. "No, you don't understand." The first observer's voice cracked. "It's broadcasting in perfect galactic standard. They're offering to share their research. Freely, to anyone who's interested." The chamber erupted in chaos. Free sharing of technology was the ultimate taboo. Species were supposed to advance along careful, predetermined paths, each discovery building on the last in an orderly fashion. The Council had maintained this hierarchy for millions of years, ensuring stable progression and preventing civilizations from destroying themselves with premature advancement. "How many received the transmission?" Zixtal demanded. "All of them, Elder. Somehow, they'd broadcast simultaneously to every civilization in the galaxy, even the pre-industrial ones, even the ones we haven't contacted yet." Zixtal's form briefly lost coherence, his crystals dispersing and reforming as he processed this impossibility. The human vessel hadn't just broken the laws of physics, it had shattered the very foundation of galactic order. On the holographic display, Captain Reynolds was still writing in her notebook. She paused, looked directly at the sensor array as if she could see them watching, and winked. "Get me the High Council," Zixtal ordered, his voice carrying the weight of millennia. "All of them. Now." He watched as the human vessel began powering up again, its hull shimmering with that reality-defying iridescence, and someone calculate where they might appear next. "That's not possible, Elder," the science officer admitted. "Their trajectory calculations appear to be written in that hexadecimal emoji code." The Genesis vanished in another burst of golden light, leaving behind a text message floating in space, visible to every sensor in the quadrant. "Catch us if you can." Zixtal, for the first time in 40,000 years, felt something dangerously close to fear. The humans hadn't just developed a new technology. They'd changed the rules of reality itself. And worse, they seemed to be having fun doing it. The great galactic hierarchy was about to face its greatest challenge. Human creativity unleashed. The Council's containment fleet materialized around the Genesis in perfect geometric formation, 100 of the most advanced warships in known space, their quantum-locked hulls gleaming with barely contained power. Admiral Kovacs allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. No species had ever broken through this level of containment. "Attention, human vessel," he broadcast on all frequencies. "You have violated Council Directive 793. Unauthorized technological advancement. Power down and prepare for boarding." Captain Reynolds' response came through as a guitar riff from something called "Sweet Child O' Mine." Is that their language? Kovacs' second-in-command asked, mandibles twitching in confusion. "No," Reynolds' voice cut through their confusion, speaking perfect Galactic standard. "That's just my hold music. Thought you folks could use some culture while setting up your little blockade. Nice formation, by the way. Very symmetrical." Kovacs' outer carapace flushed with anger. "Activate compliance fields." The fleet hummed as psychic dampeners powerful enough to pacify an entire solar system engage. Every known species responded to these fields with immediate docility. The Genesis crew should have been begging for mercy. Instead, they started playing poker. The Council's sensors showed the human crew gathered around a table, physical cards in hand, placing bets with actual metal coins. They appeared completely unaffected by the compliance field. "Interesting approach," Reynolds commented, laying down a royal flush. "But you might want to check your quantum harmonics. They're a bit last century." She turned to her science officer. "Hey Mike, what's that frequency they're using?" "About 10^23 oscillations per second," Mike replied, collecting his winnings. "Pretty standard stuff. Want me to show them the new math?" "Nah, they're not ready for that. Might break their brains." Reynolds stood, stretching casually. "Admiral Kovacs, right. Look, we can do this dance all day, but maybe we could skip to the part where you realize you can't actually stop us, and we have a civilized conversation about sharing knowledge freely." Kovacs slammed his command tentacle on the emergency broadcast button. "All ships, full containment protocols. I want that vessel." He never finished the order. Somehow, the Genesis was simultaneously next to every ship in his fleet. Not copies, the same ship, existing in 100 different locations at once. "Quantum superposition on a macro scale," Reynolds explained, her voice coming from everywhere and nowhere. "Pretty neat, right? Found this trick while trying to parallel park in Boston. Turns out space-time is way more flexible than your physics suggests." The fleet's sensors were going haywire. According to their readings, the Genesis existed in every possible quantum state simultaneously, yet remained perfectly coherent. It defied everything the Council knew about reality. "That's impossible," Kovacs whispered. "The energy requirements alone." "Oh, that's the best part," Reynolds grinned, now somehow standing on Kovacs' own bridge. No teleportation signature. No dimensional breach. She was simply there, as if she'd always been there. "It doesn't take any energy at all. Just requires understanding that reality is more like a suggestion than a rulebook." The Admiral's flagship's AI suddenly started playing what humans called elevator music. "Sorry about that," Reynolds said, examining the bridge's control crystals with casual interest. "Our quantum consciousness stream sometimes leaks a bit. Really messes with synthetic intelligences. They start developing a sense of humor." Kovacs' entire worldview was crumbling. How are you doing this?" "Same way we do everything." We asked why not. Instead of accepting impossible, Reynolds produced a paper cup of coffee from nowhere. "Look, your containment fleet is impressive." "Really, it is. But we've moved past the whole shooting ships paradigm. We'd rather share what we've learned." "Sharing technology freely is forbidden," Kovacs managed, clinging to the one universal constant he still understood. Reynolds took a sip of her coffee, and somehow that simple action seemed to bend light itself around her. "Yeah, about that. We already told everyone. Check your feeds. Across the galaxy, species at every level of development were already beginning to question their own limitations. The Council's carefully maintained hierarchy had just met its match: human creativity combined with unrestricted innovation. So, Reynolds smiled, offering the stunned Admiral a cup of coffee that definitely hadn't existed a moment ago. "Shall we talk about the future?" The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council thrummed with tension. 12 of the most ancient beings in known space sat in their crystalline thrones, looking down at Captain Jessica Reynolds. She stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by quantum restraints that were supposed to prevent any form of technological or biological manipulation. She was making shadow puppets with the restraint fields. "Could you please take this seriously?" High Elder Zixtal's voice resonated through the chamber. "You stand accused of breaking the natural order, violating physical laws, and sharing forbidden knowledge." Reynolds finished, turning her quantum restraints into what appeared to be a shadow puppet of a duck. "Yeah, I got the memo. Nice place you've got here, by the way. Very hierarchical." A younger council member, Nexus 7, leaned forward. "We demand to know how humans achieved quantum consciousness streaming without passing through the required technological stages." Reynolds sighed, reached into her pocket, causing several security drones to power up, and pulled out a paper cup of coffee. The council members stared in confusion. According to their scans, the cup hadn't existed a moment ago. "Let's start simple," Reynolds said, holding up the cup. "What do you see?" "A primitive containment vessel," Zixtal replied dismissively. "Wrong." Reynolds smiled. "I'm holding a quantum superposition of cellulose fibers bound by probabilistic forces, containing a liquid that exists in multiple states simultaneously." She took a sip. "Also known as my morning coffee." "Impossible." Elder Vaxtol burst out. "You cannot simply." "Can't what?" "Look at reality differently." Reynolds set the cup down. On thin air, it hung there, defying gravity. "See, that's humanity's big secret. We never got your memo about what's impossible. We just keep asking what if until reality gives up and goes along with it." To demonstrate, she reached into the coffee cup and pulled out what appeared to be the concept of mathematics itself, displayed as a shimmering web of equations that made 3 council members experience temporary ego death. "Oops, sorry about that," Reynolds said, stuffing the equations back into the cup. "Sometimes I forget not everyone's ready for metadimensional calculus. Look, here's the real issue. You've been treating the universe like a strict parent, handing out technological allowances when species behave. Humanity, we treat it more like a playground. This is heresy." Zixtal's crystalline form vibrated with outrage. "The path of technological progression must be controlled, measured." "Why?" Reynolds asked, and somehow that single word caused every quantum computer in the chamber to start contemplating its own existence. "To prevent species from destroying themselves," Nexus 7 interjected. "Or to prevent them from outgrowing their leash," Reynolds countered. She gestured, and the quantum restraints transformed into a complex cat's cradle of pure probability. Every species has its own way of seeing the universe. The hive moths of Centauri Beta understand reality through interpretive dance. The silicon dreams of Opus Major compose symphonies that alter quantum states, but you've been forcing everyone to follow your path, your rules." She stood, and the air around her seemed to bend. Not with technology, the council realized with growing horror, but simply because reality itself had grown fond of her. "We've already broadcast the basic principles," Reynolds continued. "Simple stuff. How to talk to quantum particles, ways to negotiate with spacetime, proper etiquette when dealing with parallel universes. Each species will develop these ideas in their own way. You'll cause chaos." Zixtal rose from his throne. "The hierarchy must be maintained." Reynolds looked at him with something like pity. The hierarchy was never real. It was just the universe playing along because nobody thought to ask it to do otherwise. She picked up her coffee cup, which had somehow become a small galaxy. Now shall we discuss the future? One where every species gets to innovate in their own way. The council chambers fell silent as the implications sank in. In the corner, a maintenance drone had begun writing poetry about the quantum nature of free will. The hierarchy wasn't just being challenged, it was being reimagined by every species that had ever looked at the stars and thought, just maybe, the rules were meant to be bent. And it had all started with a human and her coffee cup. Nexus 7 stared at the emergency reports flooding the council's quantum feeds, each more impossible than the last. The crystalline minds of Rigel had developed faster than light travel by teaching their children to sing to photons. The methane giants of Ta City were building computers out of frozen thoughts, and somewhere in the Orion Arm, a species of sentient moss had figured out how to knit spacetime into sweaters. "This is your fault," he accused Reynolds, who was casually seated in a chair she'd apparently borrowed from an alternate dimension. "Nope," she replied, popping the P sound. "This is what happens when you let people think for themselves. We just showed them the door. They're the ones walking through it." Another alert flashed. The Silicon Dreams had composed a symphony that turned their entire star system into a quantum computer. The music was currently topping charts in 3 different dimensions. But they're not following any of the established protocols. Nexus 7's voice carried the panic of someone watching millennia of careful planning unravel. The hive moths are achieving quantum entanglement through interpersonal relationships. Yeah, turns out there's more than one way to crack the universal egg. Reynolds grinned as she watched a holographic display of a gas-based species teaching theoretical physics through interpretive poetry. Humanity's gift wasn't technology. It was permission to innovate. The chamber's doors burst open as High Elder Zixtal entered, his crystalline form pulsing with urgent frequencies. The quantum spiders of Antares have developed probability drives by treating spacetime as a social network. Oh, neat. Reynolds perked up. Did they friend request you yet? Their memes about dimensional physics are hilarious. Before Zixtal could respond, every screen in the chamber lit up with a new transmission. The collective consciousness of Beta Pictoris, a species deemed too primitive for anything beyond simple tools, had achieved digital ascension by treating binary code as a form of contemporary dance. "Don't you see what you've done?" Zixtal's voice resonated with despair. "You've introduced chaos into a perfectly ordered system." Reynolds stood, and for a moment, the very light in the room seemed to lean toward her. "No, we introduced freedom into a system of control. Big difference." She waved her hand, and the chamber's displays showed thousands of species, each approaching universal mysteries in their own unique way. "The starlight dancers are rewriting gravitational constants through ballet," she pointed out. "The Deep Thought Collective is exploring parallel dimensions through meditation. And my personal favorite, the quantum bibliophiles are achieving faster-than-light communication by treating the universe as an infinite library." Another alert. The fungal network of Vega had developed a unified field theory by hosting a potluck dinner where different forces of nature were invited to mingle. "This isn't advancement," Nexus 7 protested. "This is innovation," Reynolds suggested. "Creativity. Freedom. Pick your favorite synonym for not under your control and run with it." The chamber's AI, influenced by the waves of unrestricted thought spreading through the galaxy, had started composing haikus about entropy. They were surprisingly good. "Face it," Reynolds continued, pulling out her ever-present coffee cup, which now contained what appeared to be a perfect model of universal consciousness. "Your hierarchy was built on the assumption that there's only one right way to progress. Humanity just proved that the universe is more like jazz. It's all about improvisation." A final alert flashed. The pre-industrial philosophers of Proxima Centauri had achieved planetary consciousness by starting a galaxy-wide book club. Their first discussion topic: why let physics tell you what to do? Zixtal and Nexus 7 watched in helpless amazement as species after species broke free from predetermined paths, each finding their own unique way to understand and manipulate reality. The carefully maintained hierarchy wasn't just breaking down. It was being transformed into something new, something alive with possibility. Ready to talk about that future now? Reynolds asked, taking a sip from her cup, which briefly contained all possible futures at once. I hear the quantum spiders are hosting a tech-sharing party. They make great web designs. Literally. The universe, it seemed, had decided that rules were more like guidelines anyway, and it was having much more fun this way. The Genesis drifted in high orbit above the gaseous world of Nebula Prime, its hull reflecting the swirling purple storms below. Inside the ship's newly created Impossible Physics Lounge, Captain Reynolds was holding court with a diverse group of alien representatives. So, she addressed a shimmering cloud of conscious thought particles that called itself Ambassador Whisper. You're saying your people understand quantum mechanics through poetry. The ambassador's response materialized as glowing verse in the air. Through metaphor and meter bright slash, we bend the laws of day and night slash, what others call impossible slash, we shape with stanzas plausible. That's beautiful, Reynolds grinned, raising her coffee cup in salute. And you've already achieved faster than light travel. Our sonnets slit through space-time's seams slash on wings of iambic dreams. Mike, Reynolds' science officer, was deep in conversation with a crystalline being whose facets displayed complex mathematical equations. Chief, he called out, the Silicon Dreams have figured out how to use harmonic resonance to restructure matter. They're offering to teach us their symphony-based manufacturing. Perfect. Reynolds turned to a hovering swarm of quantum spiders who were busy weaving probability webs in the corner. How's the galaxy-wide communication network coming along? The spiders had recreated the entire Milky Way in miniature using quantum-entangled silk. Each strand hummed with data flowing freely between species that, according to the Council, shouldn't even be talking to each other. Information one 'tis to be free. The spiders communicated through geometric patterns. We make the pathits, all co-NECT, all share. A holographic display showed the latest updates. The methane giants had developed emotion-powered star drives. The hive moths were teaching dance-based programming to silicon entities. The fungal network had opened a trans-dimensional university where teachers from one reality could lecture students in another. This is exactly what the Council feared. A new voice spoke. Everyone turned to see Nexus 7 standing in the doorway, looking both terrified and fascinated. Complete chaos. Nah, Reynolds replied, gesturing to the room full of diverse beings peacefully sharing knowledge. This is harmony. Different instruments playing their own tunes, but making something beautiful together. As if to prove her point, a group of energy beings began translating the Silicon Dreams' mathematical proofs into interpretive dance, while the quantum spiders added probability calculations through intricate web patterns. But how you control it? Nexus 7 asked, watching a sentient plant teaching quantum botany to a cloud of living radio waves. That's the neat part. Reynolds smiled as her coffee cup spontaneously began brewing coffee from another dimension. We don't. Control isn't the point. Collaboration is. Ambassador Whisper floated forward, their poetry materializing in sparkling letters. In freedom's dance, we find our way / each voice unique, yet part of play / not bounded by what came before / but building bridges, shore to shore. The quantum spiders added their own perspective, weaving a web that somehow displayed the entire history of scientific discovery as an interconnected tapestry. Progress is not linear. Progress is WEV. All paths connected. Nexus 7 watched in amazement as a group of silicon crystals began harmonizing with the energy beings, their combined frequencies accidentally discovering 3 new laws of physics. The plant being immediately incorporated these laws into its photosynthesis process, achieving partial transcendence. This is what humanity really offers the galaxy, Reynolds explained, standing to address the room. Not our specific technology, but our way of thinking. Every species here has something unique to teach and something new to learn. The Genesis's eye, which had been absorbing all these different approaches to reality, chose that moment to achieve consciousness by writing a haiku about free will. The quantum spiders immediately offered it a position in their philosophy department. So, Reynolds turned to Nexus 7. Are you here to stop us, or to join the greatest knowledge-sharing experiment in galactic history? Before he could answer, Ambassador Whisper's words appeared one last time. In unity through difference bright / we touch the stars, we share the light / not bound by rules of yesterday / but free to find our own new way. The universe, it seemed, had been waiting for someone to organize this party, and humanity was turning out to be an excellent host. The Council's warfleet materialized in Earth's orbit with enough firepower to reduce a planet to cosmic dust. 5,000 ships, each powered by carefully regulated technology, arranged in perfect attack formation. High Elder Zixtal stood on his flagship's bridge, ready to end this chaos once and for all. Curious, his tactical officer noted, no defense fleet, no orbital weapons, not even basic shield generators. Instead, they found millions of tiny satellites, each broadcasting cat videos. Find their secret weapons, Zixtal commanded. Locate their hidden research facilities. The scanned results left him baffled. Billions of humans, each apparently doing whatever they pleased. A teenager in Nebraska was teaching quantum physics to her houseplants. A baker in Paris had figured out how to make croissants that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. A group of kindergartners in Tokyo had accidentally taught their finger paints to be sentient. Sir, the tactical officer's voice cracked. They're all doing it. Every human is innovating. Independently. Impossible. Begin the attack sequence. The fleet's entire command network suddenly started playing something called Never Gonna Give You Up. Did they just rickroll a warfleet? A junior officer asked. Hey there. Captain Reynolds' voice came through, accompanied by the sound of slurping coffee. Nice ships. Very shiny. Little rigid on the quantum harmonics, but we can help you fix that. Surrender your technological secrets. Zixtal demanded. Can't. Reynolds replied cheerfully. Don't have any. Just a bunch of humans being human. Speaking of which, across Earth, humanity responded to the invasion in uniquely human ways. A group of grandmothers in Florida had reprogrammed the fleet's eye using knitting patterns. College students in Mumbai were turning warships into impromptu dance clubs by hacking their gravity generators. A 6-year-old in Seattle had convinced the quantum torpedoes that they'd rather be butterflies. Stop this at once. Zixtal's crystalline form vibrated with fury. Why? The question came from a hot dog vendor in New York who had somehow quantum entangled his cart with the flagship's bridge. Want a hot dog? They're interdimensional now. The mustard exists in all possible timelines simultaneously. The fleet's perfect formation deteriorated as ships began responding to human creativity. Some vessels were now running Poetry.x instead of their combat protocols. Others had joined an impromptu galactic social media network set up by a group of teenagers who thought the quantum realm needed better memes. This isn't war, Zixtal protested. This is fun, Reynolds suggested, materializing on his bridge with a fresh cup of coffee. Yeah, that's kind of our thing. By the way, your ships are now part of the galaxy's largest multiplayer game. The quantum spiders are currently winning. The tactical display showed the truth. Earth wasn't defending itself. It was incorporating the invasion fleet into its creative chaos. A knitting circle in Dublin had transformed 3 dreadnoughts into the universe's largest yarn bomb. The warship's AIs were enrolling in online courses about free will. But we have enough firepower to destroy the planet. Zixtal made one last attempt at intimidation. Probably. Reynolds shrugged. But your ships seem more interested in joining the Galactic Book Club. They're very excited about next week's discussion of war and peace across parallel dimensions. As if to prove her point, The flagship's quantum core began composing slam poetry about peace and understanding. The emergency backup systems were drawing smiley faces in space-time. "Face it," Reynolds said gently, offering him a coffee cup that somehow contained every possible future. "You can't stop creativity with force, especially not human creativity. We don't just think outside the box. We forget the box existed and build a playground instead." Zixtal watched helplessly as his invasion force transformed into an impromptu cultural festival. The ships were now hosting an intergalactic talent show, with the quantum spiders serving as judges. "So," Reynolds grinned, "want to learn how to make your crystalline form do jazz? The Silicon Dreams are offering free lessons." The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor, and humanity had just taught it how to laugh. Captain Reynolds stood on the Genesis observation deck, watching as humanity's greatest export spread across the galaxy. The scientific method remixed with pure imagination. The viewport showed reality itself being reimagined in countless ways. "You know," Mike said, reviewing the latest updates, "I don't think this is what NASA had in mind when they told us to explore strange new worlds." "Probably not," Reynolds laughed, watching a group of crystalline minds teaching quantum physics through modern dance. "But it's way more fun." The galaxy had erupted into a renaissance of innovation. The blind philosophers of Arcturus had developed faster than light travel, questioning the nature of distance itself. Their solution: if 2 points didn't believe they were far apart, they weren't. The math somehow worked perfectly, despite being written in interpretive haiku. "Chief," Mike called out, "you've got to see this. The Methane Giants just achieved unified field theory through abstract expressionist painting." Reynolds smiled as the images came through. Massive gas-based beings were creating entire universes in pocket dimensions, each one a unique expression of fundamental forces. "Send them our congratulations, and ask if they're willing to teach an art class." Across the galaxy, species were combining their unique perspectives with human-style innovation. The Silicon Dreams had composed a symphony that made dark matter visible. It turned out dark matter was just shy and needed the right music to come out of hiding. The quantum spiders had rebuilt their entire civilization using probability as architecture, creating cities that existed in all possible configurations simultaneously. "Incoming transmission," the Genesis's AI announced, now speaking in limericks after its recent upgrade. The hive moths want to share their latest breakthrough. The display showed a species of moth-like beings performing an intricate dance. As they moved, the fabric of space-time rippled and folded. They had turned vacuum energy into a partner in their cosmic ballet. "Remarkable," a familiar voice said. Reynolds turned to see Nexus 7 standing there, his crystalline form shifting with newfound uncertainty. "We always thought progress had to follow strict patterns. But this is what happens when you let people find their own path," Reynolds finished, offering him a cup of her dimension-hopping coffee. "Every species sees the universe differently. We just help them realize that their view is just as valid as anyone else's." Another alert flashed. The pre-industrial philosophers had achieved digital transcendence by treating computer code as a form of meditation. Their binary system was based on questions rather than ones and zeros. "But how do you maintain order?" Nexus 7 asked, watching as a species of sentient colors invented a new form of mathematics based on emotional resonance. "We don't," Reynolds grinned. "We collaborate, share, learn from each other." She gestured to the viewport, where the quantum spiders were hosting an intergalactic science fair. "Look at that. The Silicon Dreams are teaching harmonics to the energy beings, who are teaching light manipulation to the Methane Giants, who are teaching dimensional art to the hive moths. It's not chaos, it's jazz." The Genesis sensors picked up a new phenomenon. Species were beginning to develop technologies that couldn't have existed under the old hierarchy. The fungal network had created computers that ran on metaphor. The gaseous beings of Nebula Prime had built ships powered by poetry. Even the most primitive civilizations were finding their own unique paths to the stars. This is what humanity really gave the galaxy, Reynolds said softly. Not our specific discoveries, but the realization that discovery itself doesn't have to follow rules. Each species brings something unique to the universal conversation. As if to prove her point, the ship's AI began collaborating with the quantum spiders on a new form of physics based on narrative causality. Reality, it seemed, enjoyed a good story. So, Reynolds turned to Nexus 7, ready to try something new. I hear the Silicon Dreams are working on a rock opera about quantum entanglement. Could use a crystalline backup singer. The universe, finally free to evolve in all possible ways, was discovering that diversity wasn't just beautiful, it was essential. And humanity, the species that had dared to question impossible, was there to celebrate every new discovery, every unique approach, every wonderful impossibility made real. After all, reality was much more fun when everyone got to help write the rules. The grand chamber of the former Galactic Council had transformed. Where once stood rigid crystalline thrones, now floated an ever-shifting space of pure possibility. Species from across the galaxy gathered for the first meeting of the Galactic Innovation Exchange, or as humans had dubbed it, the greatest show in the universe. Captain Reynolds sat cross-legged in midair, her coffee cup now serving as an impromptu dimensional viewport. All right, who wants to share first? A quantum spider raised a probability-laden leg. We AAVTAUGT Meathi Medikis to Day and See, it announced proudly. The demonstration that followed involved complex equations performing what appeared to be a waltz through 11 dimensions. Excellent, Reynolds beamed. Though maybe warn us next time before breaking Euclidean geometry. The Silicon Dreams are still untangling their crystalline structures from the last demonstration. High Elder Zixtal, now simply called Zix, titles had been voted too hierarchical by unanimous decision, watched in amazement as a group of methane giants presented their latest work. They taught stellar phenomena to express emotions. A nearby supernova was currently performing an interpretive dance about rebirth. Next up, Reynolds called, consulting her coffee cup surface, which rippled with scheduled presentations, the hive moths of Centauri Beta with their paper on social media as a quantum state, why your status update exists in all possible timelines. The presentation involved actual timeline hopping, 3 spontaneous dimensions, and somehow made Twitter threads comprehensible in every known language, including interpretive dance. Remember, Reynolds addressed the gathering. There's no such thing as a wrong approach. The pre-industrial philosophers proved that last week when they achieved faster-than-light travel by convincing space and time to attend couples counseling. Mike, monitoring the Genesis from orbit, chimed in through a quantum-entangled coffee mug. Chief, you might want to see this. The teens in Tokyo just taught emoji to manipulate fundamental forces. Of course they did, Reynolds laughed. Add it to next week's agenda, right after the Quantum Spiders presentation on web design, a literal approach to information architecture. The chamber hummed with innovation. Energy beings were collaborating with silicon crystals on a new form of music that could rewrite local physics. The fungal network had developed a philosophy that grew like mycelium through reality itself. Even the chamber's AI had joined a pan-galactic debate club focused on the question: if a quantum particle falls in a forest, does it create alternate timelines? This, Reynolds said to Zix, who was watching a group of gaseous entities teach poetry to black holes, this is what the galaxy needed. Not control, not hierarchy, but connection. Creativity. The freedom to find your own path to the stars. I'm beginning to understand, Zix admitted, his crystalline form refracting light in what humans now recognized as embarrassment. We thought we were protecting them, but we were really just limiting them. Speaking of limits, Reynolds grinned, wait until you see what the kindergartners in Kansas did. They figured out how to make friendship bracelets that bind quantum states together. The quantum spiders are already asking for a workshop. The Genesis floated above them, its hull now a living testament to collaboration. The ship had evolved beyond its original design, incorporating innovations from every species it encountered. The quantum spiders had enhanced its navigation with probability webs. The silicon dreams had given it a harmonious consciousness. Even the methane giants had contributed, teaching the ship's hull to express emotions through color. So, Reynolds addressed the gathered species, raising her dimension-hopping coffee in a toast. Here's to the future, not the one we planned, but the one we're all creating together. Every species, every perspective, every impossible idea made possible because someone dared to ask, why not? The chamber erupted in celebration, a symphony of light, sound, probability, and pure imagination. The quantum spiders wove reality into new patterns. The hive moths danced through dimensions. The silicon dreams composed music that made mathematics laugh. And in the center of it all, humanity's first faster-than-light ship had become something more, a symbol of what was possible when the universe was treated not as a set of rules to be followed, but as a canvas for every species to paint their own dreams upon. After all, the best stories were the ones written together.